Hello. Just getting ready to chat with my good friend Nadine Searle of Calmer Self. We're going to have a Love Me chit chat talking about things that are coming up in the book as she's reading this. So she's just joined. I'll invite her in. And there we go. Should be just a second. It's been a while since I did a live. Hi, Nadine.
Hello, Trish. How are you?
I'm doing well. Crazy busy, but all good. I just was saying, I feel like it's been a while since I did a live. Probably the last time I did one was when we did our last chit chat. So,
Was it now? Oh, well,
yeah.
there you go. There you go. Well, you've been busy, haven't you? You've got new places that are selling your book and you've been promoting that, haven't you? So lots of
Yeah.
exciting things going on for you. New
Yes.
website, new branding. There's lots going on, isn't there?
Lots new. And for you as well, I know you've been busy and doing a lot of new things. So it's exciting to come together and have this chat and explore everything that you've been reading and how it's resonating with you, but also it ties into a lot of our own, like it ties into our healing, obviously, but also the work we help other people through and challenges and, experiences in their lives that help them evolve. So I'm so grateful
Yeah,
that we're having this conversation today and
yeah.
that you're
Me
joining.
too. And it's so right, isn't it? It reflects what's going on in our life. This is what I find when I read your book, and then something just pings out at me, and I go, oh, that's exactly what's happening either now or I needed to be reminded.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's lovely. And as I've said before, I get the chance to talk to you about it, which is wonderful. But you're absolutely right. It reflects with the people that we interact with as well, doesn't it? Our own work that we are continually doing on ourselves, it reflects, and with our clients, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's the way the universe just brings it all together is quite magical, isn't it? So
It
it is
is.
lovely.
It's there's lots of energies at play, lots of interactions and things coming in to help support us. As we know, we've been talking about that.
Mm.
So I'm just yeah, it's so and I feel like the things that resonate with us in the moment, it might be something that's going on currently, or it might give us a moment of pause for self-reflection on something that has been a reoccurring pattern in our lives, or anything that we want to explore to grow and to heal and evolve on our path. So I think well, I know what we're going to talk about today is forgiveness, and it was prompted by a part of the book that where that was
It was, yes, it's
yeah.
no secret. We've been telling everyone what we're going to be talking about
I
today,
know.
haven't we? No
It's
secrets
such a
today.
big
So
topic
yes,
right now too. Yeah.
it is. It is. It's a big one, and it's one that you picked. And I know you picked it because there's certain things coming up for you and everything as well. And
Mhm.
it's something I'm working on myself as well. So forgiveness, big one. I've got your book here.
Yeah.
So if you're okay, I'll read a little bit, shall I? And then it can sort of prompt us to talk. Is that okay if I do
That's
that?
perfect. I love it. Yeah.
I'm not going to read the whole thing. What if the people that have got the book, page 45, Dear First Wound, that's the bit I'm reading from.
Hmm.
Now, your book, as we've said, is a lot of poetry as well as your writing. Now, this
Yeah.
one, it isn't really a poem, is it? It's a letter, isn't it, that you wrote
Yes.
to yourself? Have I got that right? And
Yeah.
I would encourage everyone to read it. I'm not going to read the whole thing now. I could read it another time at some point if people want to hear it all. But I just want to pick out a few bits that I thought were really poignant. And actually, just to get this conversation going about forgiveness, because
Hmm.
some people struggle with it. They don't want to forgive. They think it's a weakness. There's a problem with it sometimes. And the way that we're going to talk about it will actually, hopefully, shed a bit of light on that and give
Yeah.
people almost that permission to step into a bit of forgiveness, because it's something we do hold at bay, isn't it? So
Hmm.
hopefully that will help.
Yes.
So, as I say, it's a letter, Dear First Wound. And one of the things that you're saying here, you're talking about, if I've got this right, this is my understanding of it anyway, is that this is the first time you remember maybe being hurt, something that you remember that hurt you
Yeah.
deeply and shaped how you then lived your life until you realized, till you got that awakening.
Hmm.
So I think we've probably all got one of these if we care to recollect.
Yes.
Um, it's just hard to remember sometimes, isn't it? But one of the things that you've got here, and I think you're talking about your parents, maybe, I'm not sure. And again, we don't blame with this, do we? We're just reflecting. So what I've got here is what you said was that I should have been a boy.
Hmm.
What I heard was that I wasn't what you wanted. Now, that in itself really says a lot, doesn't it? Because what people are saying to us, we don't always hear the way it was intended. And that is something that I think we just need to take a moment and really recognize that actually
Right.
it happens so often, doesn't it? You know, that
Yeah.
we can say things to people, we can hear things from other people, and the communication isn't quite right, is it? So,
Right.
I mean, how do you feel? I mean, it must, I don't know how it is when I read things to you that you've written. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, it's, it's a part, first of all, I've worked on a lot of healing around that area. So just to speak to that, and I shared this because number one, at the time, like, my earliest memory was probably 5 years old, and it's not that these things are said intentionally to cause harm. It's
Mm,
something, but it was something that was repeated that I remembered. And at the time, being 5, I didn't have the cognitive ability to understand that maybe my behavior warranted, something harsh, or to kind of rein me back in. And so there's a lot of these things that it could be something else that, somebody said to you and you heard it repeatedly. And what ends up happening is we end up taking that on as a belief in ourselves. And for
mm,
me, I didn't really understand what that was that I
mm.
was hearing, only the energy around it, that I wasn't what maybe my mother wanted me to be. And
Yeah.
again, not to blame, it's just that is the process that I went through. And then and I think people can relate to that, that we maybe heard something and then we start to realize ways that we are accepted in our life. And I think we've talked about this before too. We start to begin to subtly, subconsciously become that person, and it takes us outside of who we truly are. So
Yeah.
again, there's that. The reason why I share that is because it's important to heal those parts of ourselves that have been hurt, and to also, forgiveness is a big part of that. And forgiveness is a big part of self-love. It's one of the most
Yeah.
important parts. It's essential for loving ourselves, is forgiving. And it's not just about forgiving the other person. There's a lot of that. And then there's also forgiving ourselves for allowing ourselves maybe to be, um, hurt in that way. Because then there's all, it's
Mm.
multifaceted forgiveness, and these
It
wounds that
is.
we have. And the importance of why we're talking about this is because we don't realize we're doing it in the moment, because we're operating maybe from an unhealed place. We're operating from maybe that place where
Mm.
we were parented in a way that we
Yeah.
were, shamed, or something. So something to, in essence, rein in some behavior, control some sort of, mechanism that way. And
Mm.
there's so much to say about it, but it's really, we're talking about forgiveness, and
Yeah.
it's not to blame. It's to
Yeah.
heal, really.
It is really. I mean, what you just said is the next bit I was going to read, and it's perfect. I realise you were likely wounded too, and operating from that place.
Mm,
So it's like you say, as you get older and as you've worked on that a little bit, you can realise that, but you don't realise it in the moment, do you? And like you say, if something is repeated to you. I mean, I could say, and I probably have, someone's behaving a certain way, and I go, "Oh, you should be a boy. You should have been a boy." I wouldn't be
mm-hmm.
thinking that's hurtful, but it's who's listening, how many times it's said maybe, and how that affects you. And then, like you say, you're trying to change because you're thinking, well, maybe I should be a boy, I've got to change, I've got to try and be different. But it isn't. If I was saying that to you, it wouldn't be what I was meaning. And so that is that understanding, that forgiveness, like you say, it's multifaceted, isn't it, to actually think about that whole process. So forgiveness in itself is very layered, isn't it? So it's
It
really
is very
interesting to
layered.
think about
Yeah. And yeah,
yeah.
to speak to that specifically too, it's not just whether or not I should have been a boy, or it's more the energy around I wasn't what I thought was wanted and
Yeah.
to
Mm,
be. So it's like then changing who I was in order to be loved and accepted and be
mm,
seen and heard. And I mean, I think that is also the reason why forgiveness is so important, because um, and you said it when we first started, that it's something that a lot of people are afraid to have to come into engagement with it, with somebody, and in forgiving, either whether it's apologizing for something, not knowing how that is going to go on the receiving end, and all of that. But that's ultimately, um, forgiveness is like a gift for ourselves, because we're honoring that, whether or not it's us that did the wounding or we're the one that was being hurt, we're honoring that, that the energy of that. So for example, if I hurt somebody and I apologize or ask for forgiveness, I'm acknowledging my imperfection and my
yeah.
humanity, and that I see that there's, I've hurt somebody, and then it's it's a form of respecting myself, respecting, it's a form of loving myself, but also honoring and validating that the other person, their experience was valid. And so, well, whether
Mm,
or not we see it, that we, because a lot of times we don't intend, most times we don't intend to cause harm.
no,
So it's
no,
hard
we
to
don't.
hear when we've hurt somebody. We immediately want to go into that protective mode and ego and defend, and
Mm,
like, as the person is telling you how you hurt them, you're literally planning your defense, and or
yes.
acknowledging that it didn't happen, or just some kind of like writing it off and invalidating the person who was hurt, their feelings. So I think it's important. That's why I love that we're talking about this, because
Mm,
yes, it's difficult to have those conversations, but that only brings us deeper into relationship with each other, because we have, we're moving through conflict instead of away from that discomfort, like we've talked about before.
yes, leaning into it, as you say all
Yes,
the time, leaning into it. I love that. You finish your letter actually with, like you were just saying, how rounded it is. And if I can just read that last little bit as well, it will help people understand. Where
sure.
you say, we have all harmed others in one way or another, self included, which is what you
Mm-hmm.
just said, isn't it? We have the opportunity before us to reconcile and heal this together. In doing this, we can also heal the wounds of our ancestors who
Mm-hmm.
couldn't or didn't know how to heal. Now, I'm
Right.
getting chills just as I'm reading that,
Yeah.
because the power of forgiveness is massive, isn't it? When we can forgive, we are forgiving on a big scale, aren't we? It's not just us. It does have that far reaching ability, doesn't it, to heal wounds of the past for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, but for other people too. And it is something I don't think, I never understood the power of
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness. I've got to be honest, I didn't want to go there. And I found it really hard. I thought if you forgive, you're just letting people off. And I
Right.
didn't realize how beneficial it would be for me to actually sit in forgiveness. I wouldn't go there,
Mm-hmm.
but I have now, and I practice it. And I still have moments when I go, I'm not quite sure that's what I want. So
Mm-hmm.
sitting with it is so important. And also, like we do, both of us, we help other people with it. Sometimes you do need that. I needed someone to talk me through it. I needed someone to sit with me in that.
Yeah.
And while I went through the process, and I know you do this for your clients all the time, and it's such wonderful work, isn't it, to be able to help someone who doesn't get it. Because I was one of those people, I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still wouldn't if someone hadn't helped me through that. So it is that kind of, forgiving others, like you say, forgiving yourself is,
Yes.
powerful, powerful, isn't it? So
It is. And it's so, going back to what you said, we think it's almost like a weakness that we're giving in when we say, I forgive you, or I apologize, I'm sorry. But really and it's counterintuitive. Really, it does the opposite. First of all, like I said, you're honoring the other person's experience that you might not be able to fully feel and be in, but you can at least allow yourself to be in as much as possible. And then what that does is it starts to set healthy boundaries within that relationship, because you're opening up and like a portal for that deeper conversation, for transparency, for vulnerability, for all the things that help us live deeper and richer and more connected to our soul, because we all have that, the ability to be connected in that way. So it's so while it seems counterintuitive, it's not. It's more empowering. It's not disempowering, because you're acknowledging that we're human. And I think that's like one of the themes of my book, is really coming back to that imperfection of our humanity, and that it's okay, because perfection is a myth. And it's something that we want to always be right. We always want to be perfect. We won't put ourselves out there unless it's perfectly, you know, curated or whatever. And it's like, that's the essence of forgiveness, and the act of forgiving is opening up that energy of deeper, more trusting, vulnerable relationship. And you know, it can be, if one person isn't ready to receive or to forgive, you know, it could go sideways. But that's the risk that we take, and we have to be willing to take in any kind of growth or healing. If we don't at least put ourselves out there, it's not going to you know, we're gonna just stay stuck in it. So to your point, a lot of times, you know, you need help with that, and we both offer that. People we work with, you have your gentle questioning is one of the things I've experienced myself, and it's really powerful to explore in a healing sense something like forgiveness, and how, you know, we'll get to the real root of it. And that's the beauty of that. The work that we've you know, taken our own experiences and are now helping other people uncover that within themselves.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That we have felt it ourselves, and we will feel it again and again. Maybe you always say, don't you? These things come back until we've really learned it, and maybe we never finish learning. But you reminded me quite recently about just sort of really feeling that whatever you want to feel, but not being attached to the outcome. I'm not quite sure, I'm not saying it in exactly the right words, but the whole idea of actually not worrying so much about what the other people say. So what I'm trying to say is, if I want to forgive someone, or if I want to actually ask for forgiveness, it's not for me to be thinking about what I'm going to get in return. And that, for me personally, is quite hard, because I'm a little bit controlling. But also, you know, if I want to say sorry to someone, and I've got to be very, very honest, I'm really not good at saying sorry. I'm not very good at actually getting, you know, when people say sorry to me, I'm quite tough on that one. I go, really? You know, so again, I need to be in that right place to be asking for forgiveness, or actually giving forgiveness. So I do need that process of sitting with it for a while and getting quite clear. And like you reminded me recently, you know, it's not the outcome that's important necessarily. You know, you said detach yourself, didn't you, from the outcome, I think, which is a lovely way to look at it. Just actually do what you need to do for you. It's not about everyone else. And that's so valuable. And you reminded me at the perfect time recently that I needed to hear that. But it is, you know, when I first learned about forgiveness, you know, this idea of actually asking someone else to forgive you, I thought, oh my God, honestly, I did not imagine I could ever do that. And I was very caught up in well, what if they don't? What if, you know, what if they, like you said, what if they're defending themselves? What if they're actually doing, which is quite normal.
Yeah.
But to actually get comfortable with that, with the help of someone else just talking me through that, and holding that space for me to go, well, that is okay. You might not get the answer you want, but you're doing what you need to do. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's speaking to what you said. It's common for a lot of us to not want to go there and ask for forgiveness, because we're concerned or worried about the outcome, if the other person's going to receive it in the way that we intended it to be, if it has, you know, a positive favorable outcome for us. But like I said, it's detaching ourselves from that outcome no matter what. That's where we're in our worth. That's where we're
Yeah.
empowered, is being in that soul connected place versus the ego that wants to protect and wants to, everything to go
Yes.
the way that we want it to go, and having that control. I think,
Mm.
you said you sometimes want that control. And I think that comes out in
Yeah.
all of us because
Yeah.
ego wants to control everything. And sometimes it's like
Mm.
out of protection, but it's not really protecting us. It's keeping us stuck. So,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's where it's really brave and um, courageous to take that step to say, hey, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and try to, initiate that conversation with somebody, because that is a place that's not driven by our ego needing to be right. And
Mm.
maybe the person won't be ready to forgive, but we need to be okay with that. And that's where the empowerment comes in. And that's where we're really in our self-worth, and we're really in a place of also forgiving ourselves at that point. It's a gift that we're giving ourselves by just honoring the process, and allowing that other person to say, hey, I see you, I hear you, I'm sorry, and let it go, if whether or not they accept that or not. So
Mm. Mm. Yeah, no, I really
it's
get that.
really empowering. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Let me quickly ask you something, as you're much kinder than me. I've got to put it out there. Um, as I say, I'm not very good at forgiving. I'm not
Yeah.
very good at the word sorry is not something that sits comfortably with me. So in the past, and I probably can still do it now, if someone apologizes to me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite tough. That probably is my ego protecting myself. I don't know. Um, but my initial reaction to someone saying sorry to me is, this is really awful, but I'll admit it, I'll say it out loud. You can't be sorry, otherwise you wouldn't have done it. That's my reaction a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time, because I feel, or I say, if you're really sorry, you won't do it again. That's tough, isn't it? Is that
Yeah,
my ego protecting me? That's my sort
that
of gut
is.
reaction?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's our conditioning too, to,
Mm.
we hear other people say that, our parents or our grandparents, whatever, through the years, and we're like, yeah, if you were really sorry, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. But
I
a
know.
lot of times,
How
like I said,
cruel.
it's unintentional, or we might be, feeling off. And that is why we're talking about healing, and why it's so important. And people probably, get tired of hearing that word, but we don't have to be operating from these wounded places all the time. We don't have to be so easily triggered. And so actually, having the courage to acknowledge that we've done something wrong, or then being on the receiving end, acknowledging that, okay, I can see, because we can put ourselves in that position too, of having to be the one to apologize. So
Mm.
it's
Mm.
really about letting down that, dropping the ego, and operating from our heart and our soul, and
Yeah.
understanding that we're really not here to hurt anyone. And if they, if that were the intention, the person probably wouldn't be apologizing in the first place. It's like, especially when we're in
That's it.
relationships with people that we're with them all the time, there's going to be those
Mm.
moments where we're not our best selves. It's just
Mm.
inevitable. If we're in a long-term
Mm.
relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic partnership or whatever, there's going to be times where our lower vibrational self is going to show up. And then, so we're going to have to come back together and say, hey, I'm sorry.
Mm.
And,
Mm.
and acknowledge that. And then also, then, to your point of, well, don't do it again, that's also our learning and wisdom to take, and to not be so reactive, but to take pause when something is happening, or we're being triggered, because a lot of times our initial reaction isn't our true reaction. So that's
Yeah.
probably another
Yeah.
whole other
That's another
episode
topic,
of
isn't
this.
it?
But
Another thing
yeah,
to talk about. But
yeah,
but it is, no, that has helped me. It's answered me, and hopefully it will help other people listening, because that is the honest truth of how I have
mm-hmm.
been with that word sorry a lot. And I know when I was a nursery teacher, so many parents would say to their children, say sorry, say sorry. And I was going, don't make them say sorry, they don't mean it.
Yeah,
And that's just because actually sometimes, it is that, oh, just say sorry and then do it again, which I
mm-hmm.
used to see quite often with little toddlers, bless them. But it is that kind, and I think I've sort of held that with me quite a lot, that
Yeah,
actually there's definitely that attitude, well, if you're sorry, prove it. I'm quite tough in
right.
that way. So it's interesting. I mean, I've softened, obviously, it can be nicer, but with help of people like you, obviously.
But I think, you just spoke to the conditioning that we grow up in, that is like
Mm,
we're
mm,
forced to say sorry without really understanding what is
exactly.
behind that, and
Mm,
really
mm,
instead taking, a few minutes to unpack what happened first,
yeah,
and then letting it come
yeah,
from within. So
yes,
it's
yeah.
that really speaks to it. That's,
That's
that's how a
that's the
lot of
key,
us
isn't
are
it?
operating. That's why like I said, it's so important to come back to those core wounds that we have and begin to heal them. And
Mm, mm,
that's what we're doing for ourselves and helping other people.
yeah.
So
So you're so right, and that is
yeah,
that is the thing, isn't it?
yes.
Sitting with it, going through those emotions, and coming at it from a place of authenticity, isn't it?
Hmm.
Being real with it on both sides of the coin. And that is, you know quite well, I do a meditation quite often that comes at forgiveness from three directions. And I
Hmm.
find it so powerful. It's one of the ways I started to learn forgiveness for myself. And I did struggle with it to start with, but it's forgiving people that have hurt us, which I
Hmm.
think is the one that people recognize first of all, but also asking forgiveness from people that you've hurt, which I
Right.
found tremendously difficult, and forgiving yourself, which again,
Yes.
you've talked about that quite a lot just in this little conversation, but it is those three directions. And when you look at the three of them, when you really can sit in that safe held place and really feel it, it's massively powerful and has massive change. You get a shift when you really sit with that. So
Yeah.
so it's quite a lovely way to do it.
I love that you offer a meditation of that, because that's really, allowing the opportunity to sit with that energy. And I think, yeah, one of the first places we can start to practice forgiveness is with ourselves, and for
Mm,
choices maybe we made that we
mm,
look back and say,
mm,
maybe I could have done things differently. And it's not about regret. It's about just letting go of, because a lot of times that forgiveness allows us to be unstuck. We're holding ourselves back with that. So
yeah, yeah.
it's a good place to start. So where can people find you if they want to try out your meditation?
Yes. Well, we are both on the KS Media Group app, aren't we? We're both there, so you can
Yes.
find us both on there. Definitely, you can get in touch with us through that.
Hmm.
But my YouTube channel is a good place to look for me because there's lots of interviews on there. There's a lovely podcast interview with you on there, isn't there? And
Yes.
lots of other people and things that I put on there myself. So the Calm Myself YouTube channel is a good place as well. But I do feel, as I say, that three-directional meditation was what helped me, and really made me understand that forgiveness is freeing.
It
It's
is.
for me. It's quite selfish in a way. It was for me. It wasn't about forgiving the other person, and I'd never understood that before. So
Hmm.
it is really crucial, isn't it? When you hear about people that have murdered and things like that, and they're forgiven by the victims' relatives and things like that, I could never understand that.
Hmm.
But to hold yourself, like I'm saying, not letting the sorry happen in whatever direction,
Right.
is really weighs you down, doesn't it? So once you get your head around forgiveness, it's so beneficial because it frees you up. You almost let the pain go, don't you, when you can sit in that
Yes.
forgiveness.
You're not holding on to that pain. You're not storing
Mm,
that emotion in your body. It really is freeing. That's why it is so empowering, because you're taking back your inner power, and you're not held back by the energies of the
mm,
resistance, the resentment, the anger, all those
mm,
emotions that are wrapped up in what we're
yeah,
forgiving. So it is, when you
yes,
offer that forgiveness to somebody else, it is so freeing and
it is freeing. Yeah,
liberating
you
and
let things go.
empowering, and you're in your worth and you're in your integrity, all of it. And it's so
Mm,
beautiful. That's why it's such a gift, and why we're talking about this. So because it's important to deepen our relationships, and I think we
it
all want
is.
that deeper connection.
Well, yeah, it's crucial, isn't it? So
That's
so you are on Instagram. You're This Is Trish Campbell, aren't you? And I
yes,
think your new, improved, wonderful website is This Is Trish Campbell as well, is it?
yes.
Is
This
that
is
where
Trish
people can
Campbell.
find your website?
Yep, this is
Yeah, but
trishcampbell.com. And yeah, like you said, on the KS Media Group app. And I have a YouTube channel too. It's also This is Trish Campbell. So trying to grow that, and all my podcasts and all of our chit chats are
Mm,
there, and our podcast
yes.
together, everything. So thank you
Mm,
for initiating this conversation. And I know we'll have lots
it's
more to talk about as you
a good one.
continue to
Yes.
read Love Me. And if you're watching this, whenever you're watching this, like drop us a comment and let us know how this resonates with
Yes.
you, and
Please do. I
reach
would
out
love
to
to
us
know. Yeah.
if you need help in
Yes.
unpacking some forgiveness within yourself.
Exactly. If you're struggling, we know what that feels like, don't we?
Yes,
So talk to us.
yes.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Trish. It's so lovely to be able to ask you these questions and just dig a bit deeper. So
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with me and for having these conversations. I really love it. So deeply grateful. Okay, we'll talk soon. Much
Yes, speak
love.
to you soon.
Okay.
Bye bye,
Bye.
everybody. Thanks for listening. Comment below for us.